Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at a pretty epic hinge. I don't know if you caught that or not, but you may not see this often. It's a BB1199 5x12 in 32D. It's actually a WT BB1199. So it's a wide throw. Solid stainless steel, heavyweight. 5-knuckle ball bearing. Full mortise, button tip, template pattern, 5" by 12". Now, where in the God's green earth are you going to use this? They're out there. They're out there. They're out there to the point that I stock a quantity of 5x12s and 5x10s, and we're going to talk about why they're out there. So this hinge is not yet in our site. At the time I'm making this video, it's not built in the site. By the time you're seeing this video, you'll be seeing it embedded in the item. But let's talk about the dimensional properties first, and then we're going to get on with what it is and why you use it. So it's 5". So it's a 5x12. The width is always the second dimension on hinges like this. The height is the first dimension. It runs counter to how doors are sized. It's 12" wide. Sorry, 5x12. It's a 99 hinge, WTBB1199. 99 means it's heavyweight. We know that it's heavyweight. We don't have to measure it to know it's heavyweight, but I'll show you why. This should measure 0.190, and my caliper is telling me 0.185. Now we can tell visually that it's heavyweight because it has 4 bearing packets. That's a telltale sign that you're dealing with a heavyweight hinge. So the only wide throw 10", 12" I stock are going to be in heavyweight. WT BB1168 or BB1199. So where in the world would you use such a hinge? It's not that uncommon. Let's talk about it. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now let's get back to it. So a wide throw hinge is generally not used because of a door thickness. It just isn't. And in fact, wide throw hinges are not load rated at all. There's no table I can pull up and say that a 5x12 heavyweight stainless base material hinge will hold a door of so many pounds. There is no table, so there's not load rated. But where you'll use these is for its designed purpose, where you have an unusually great clearance dimension that you have to get the door out and around, or you have a deep inset, or you have both. And in fact, the formula for determining wide throw incorporates both of those values, and we're going to look at length in terms of what the formula looks like on screen. But this type of hinge is going to be used for exactly that, where you have, imagine this in your mind's eye. This is an actual opening I'm describing. 18" thick walls. You've got, pre-bellum construction. You've got mid-19th century, early 19th century construction. There's no structural steel. You've got a 3-story building, and the weight of the second and third story are all sitting on those walls. Well, the walls on the first floor are 18" thick. So what they did was they've got 18" jambs, and they've got some applied stop there, and they've got casing on both sides of the wall. Well, they took the doors and they centered them in the opening, in that 18" opening. So the center line of the thickness of the door is at 9". So I don't recall, let's just say that the doors are 2" for easy calculation. That means that you're going to have 18, 9 minus 1 is 8, so you'll have 8 inches, 8.5 inches on either side of inset is what you'll end up happening. 8.5, no, sorry. 8, I said an 18" wide, you're going to go to 9, take off 1 inch, it'd be 8" of inset on either side. 8 times 2 plus 2 is 18". So your door could be set in 18". That's, pardon me, your door could be set in 8". You could have, in your mind's eye, the thickness of the casing that you have to get out and around. You could have chair rail. You could have a very thick baseboard. You could have corbels that are up top of the door and frame on the casing. You could have a really proud treatment at the floor as well. And you have to get the door, here's the key, to 180 degrees. Now, the last time, a couple of months ago, I sold 5x12 hinges. It was exactly for a client who had a really unusual, not unusual, it just had a particular application. A 150-year-old building in New York, doors leading to an elevator. They needed to get the door out and around to 180 degree. Very thick wall. Could be a 12 or 14-inch thick wall. But they wanted to swing that door and not only get it to 180 degree, but to hold it open. And that is something important to talk about. And I'm going to get to talking about the problems with these hinges. And there are for sure two. There are two I can think of off the top of my head. And we're going to go over that. But there are problems. Just don't order these hinges without being aware of the problems. Well, 3 for sure. It's not load rated. If you have a heavy door, this may not be the right hinge to use. And then you've got a clearance problem and then a hardware conflict problem, a hardware issue. So it's the application where you need to get the door out and around something is really what you're going to find. Now, that case of the deep inset, they could also have accomplished that with raised barrel hinges, because the problem is in that cased opening frame, the door sits here. Well, the barrel is going to want to sit right in where the jamb is, but if you use a raised barrel hinge, it doesn't really matter what the inset is. And in fact, you'll see raised barrel hinges in residential applications all the time where they have jamb extensions installed. They took a 4 9/16 exterior jamb, added 1.25 inch jamb extensions to it. Well, now the butt hinge, the barrel of the butt hinge, is now hitting, where the frame wants to be. The frame wants to go right over this. Well, that's no good. So they'll use a raised barrel hinge where they'll bend this angle off to get that out and around. The last time we sold it, that's what it was used for. Prior to that, I think what the deal was, same application. We sold some 5x10s or 5x12s to someone with a gate, and the posts were like 8x8 posts, and they were shimming the door to the push side and wanted it to swing out and around and get all the way folded back. And it's just really the formula that we have to talk about. So, having said that, we'll do a visual review. Let's do it now. So I just want to show this to you a little bit more up close. Solid stainless steel. This is pure stainless. This is the most durable of finishes because it's nothing other than brushed. It's nothing other than the base material has been brushed. It could also have been polished, making it US 32. So you've got a brushed finish, solid stainless. You've got the Hager logo there. Okay. Hager USA. Doesn't mean it was made in the USA. Just be mindful of that. Just because something says USA doesn't mean made in USA. This would be considered a template pattern, okay, for a 5-inch hinge, and there's a template that we'll look at for that. Again, the bearing packets, you'll have 4 of them on a heavyweight hinge, whereas a standard weight only has 2, one top, one bottom. Button tip, you can do options on these tips as well. This is a standard hinge in the sense that there are no security features on this. There's not an NRP, there's not a security stud in either the leaf or reverse security studs into the jamb. And then you're going to get fasteners. On a 5-inch hinge, it just takes your typical number 12 head. We can also supply you with, you can purchase longer screws in stainless. Hager does their standard 1.25 inch, and they'll do a 2.5 as well, which we have on the website. So be mindful that you may want longer screws. A lot of people do. Let's switch to the screen view and let's really dive into some supporting documentation, but really talking about the why and how. We're going to talk about how you calculate the width of the hinge that you need. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, this is not the hinge, as I said earlier. This happens to be a steel-based, but it's going to serve as good extended description information. I'll leave all of this up here for you to read. It doesn't necessarily apply to a wide throw hinge. This is copy that's out of the Hager catalog. What's important here is wide throw hinge, heavyweight, 5 knuckle, square corner. You can also do this in radius corner. 5 by 12, 0.190 thick, and then the documents. So let's dive into that. Cut sheet, first of all. This is not the right cut. Yeah, it is actually. So it's a BB1199. It's a 5 knuckle, full mortise hinge. It's heavyweight. It's ball bearing. This one's stainless steel pin. It's stainless steel with a stainless steel pin. 4 ball bearing. It's a non-rising removable pin with a button tip, meaning the inside of that pin, the inside of that hinge pin is knurled like this, so that when you tap it down, that knurling kind of keeps it nice and seated where it needs to be. Okay, so it does a good job at keeping you where you need to be. That pin doesn't rise out of there, which hinge pins do tend to rise out, so non-rising is nice. It's like extruding. When you open the door countless thousands of times, that pin is kind of being extruded or pushed out of the top, and you'll notice it. You'll see hinges that rise. Eventually they'll come out to the point where they cause a fitment problem. This table here shows standard sizes that Hager will offer. We do stock some 8x8 hinges, but you see it's not just the garden variety 4.5, 4.5, or 5x5. You know, you've got these 4.5x4, the 5x4.5, the 6x4.5. What are these exotic sizes? We're touching on that now, really. 8x8 is fun. That's when you're going to be doing probably an extremely heavy door, and an extremely thick door, or a wide throw, or a combination of really heavy and wide throw. That's a pretty massive hinge. So the next document's going to be product catalog. This is going to be more of the same. This is all of the Hager architectural hinges. I'll skip that. You can go into that. Now, the template is here, and this is really fun to be able to see. This is your, well, it's, yeah, okay, we modified this. This document doesn't exist at Hager, I don't think. I think, well, maybe they modified it or we did. So 5 by 12, 5 and 5/8 is going to be the leaf, or the leaf line, or the swag line. That's how long this leaf is. So on a 5 by 12, a lot of customers ask us, how long is that leaf? And I know why they're asking us, because they'll also ask us the diameter of the barrel. They're asking us because they're trying to figure out how wide of a hinge they need. Well, don't do that. I'm going to show you I'm going to give you the right formula. So your length, your diameter, the location of your holes. This is going to be for 5-inch tall hinges only, regardless of the width. 5, 6, 7. I don't know. Yeah, I think they do all of these. Okay, that's your template. Now, technical drawing. Okay, this is something I made, and we're going to get into this in a moment. This is literally a 5 by 12 hinge that I'm showing rotating through and opening. Okay, now let's get into that right now. What I'm showing you here in this click to enlarge situation is with a 5 by 12 hinge, because of here's your point of rotation. Because of how the hinge so severely leaves the opening here, it gets to a point here where it's going to hit the jamb. It's going to. This is a very small margin. You have to relieve this much heavier than a 3-degree bevel, or undersize the width far more substantial. Now, this is a video of me blabbing on about it. The rotational value of what the door down. So you can watch this video, and here I am, literally demonstrating. What you're seeing here is where it's absolutely going to hit. Okay, so you'll be able to watch that video, and it will be, 1/8 of an inch. It'll be there by the time you view it. So I had mentioned three problems. Well, the first one was load bearing, I mentioned. The second is clearly the clearance problem. Third is that same client with the elevator door a couple of months ago needed a hold open closer for it. It turns out that the vertical axis of pivoting, or that pivot point, absolutely affects the door closer you need. What the factory had to make for us, and I'm going to pull it up and show it to you, was a special arm for these closers. Yeah, here it is. I'm going to pull that template off and show it to you. And the concept is just like this. As I bring this over. So that main arm of the closer, it literally needs to be longer. So they're going to take that 40-40 arm and they're going to cut that and they're going to stretch it out. I haven't scaled this. I don't know how much bigger that gets. You know, 3 or 4 inch would be my guess. I'd have to measure it. I don't know the dimension. But the bottom line is it affects your hardware, and it most certainly did in this case. The client and that was LCN, by the way. The client already had a Dorma 8616 on the job with an FJ FHP arm, and Dorma said, we can't do it. We can't get you a close. Well, they tried to install it, and they found that it didn't work. So the client called me and said, hey, remember those hinges you sold me a month ago? I need a closer. So we found them a closer, is the bottom line. So the weight, the clearance, and how it will impact other hardware that you may use needs to be all thought about. Okay, now the discussion of wide throw. Let's get into that right now. We're going to pull up the Hager catalog because it's really a great document because, well, Hager is good, and a couple of other manufacturers I can think of have really good encyclopedic approaches to their product catalogs, and Hager is really good, and we're going to get that catalog right here. Okay, so where I found that was on the manufacturer's page. When you're looking at the item, click on the link here and that page will come up, this page. Then fire up the product catalog, and then once that loads, you're going to Control F or find function for wide throw, and you're going to find the definition of wide throw, I think. No such luck. Well, I happen to know it's early in the catalog, so let's see if we can just find it by scrolling. Yeah, here it is. General information, selecting a hinge. Yeah. Minimum width of hinge. Well, they're giving you a table here where they've done the math. Okay, here it is, width of hinge. There are according to Hager, there are 3 dimensions to know in order to determine the minimum width of a hinge: door thickness, hinge back set, and clearance. There are actually 4 dimensions that you have to know, although you can wrap clearance up into clearance and inset, but we'll talk about that. When figuring the calculations for a wood door and wood frame, the door is flush with the casing or face of the frame. Okay, is it? It may not be. Okay, so that's problematic right there. Let me explain what they're talking about. You've got, in our 18-inch frame, and it was pairs of doors, by the way. Stage right, there'd be another jamb over here. So they're saying that the door is flush out here, which doors normally are flush. They're not in this case. So what Hager is saying is your door is flush. Okay, let's just go with that for right now, that it's flush. I'm saying that it's not always flush. When figuring the calculations for a wood or metal door with a hollow metal frame, the door is inset approximately 1/8 of an inch. Well, that's very true. When you're dealing with steel doors, they're inset. Not 1/8, but it's very, very, very close to 1/8. So that when you have a steel frame, that door is indeed inset slightly. It's like 3/32 of an inch. Aluminum storefront sometimes is inset, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's flush. Okay. For doors up to 2 1/4 thick, the hinge backset is 1/4. From the back face of the door. For doors over 2 1/4, it's 3/8. So what they mean by hinge backset is this. Here's the edge of a door. When you mortise the edge of the door for the hinge, got your hinge leaf here. Okay, your other hinge leaf is this. Okay, that's your hinge barrel. Sorry. So the hinge back set is the amount of the door that's not cut out from here to here. It's generally 1/4 inch, but not always. I did a job one time where they made it all 3/16 because what they wanted to do was suck the door out. They decreased this, allowing the door to get moved out this way because they had hollow metal doors that were set for an inset. They didn't want an inset. No, pardon me. They had hollow metal frames where the prep for the hinge was such that an inset would be required because of the size of the rabbet. Well, they wanted to scooch the doors out, so they decreased this, and that meant that everything I did on the wood doors needed to be compensated for that. I had to make the doors with a 3/16 back set. These are 9/0 African mahogany 90-minute doors. So we had to get that right. Not 1/4 inch, which is standard. The point of the matter is, hinge back set can be anything, meaning you have to know what it is. If you're dealing with a 3-inch thick door, who knows what the hinge back set is? That's got everything to do with the hinge leaf and where the holes for the screws are prepped. You know, if you've got a 3-inch thick door, you know, where are you going to put those screw holes? That door might be over like this, or that back set is going to be, you know, 1 1/4 inch or 1 inch. Could be anything. Who knows? Who knows what it is? So you have to know what it is. Now, once these dimensions are known, the formula can be applied. Take the door thickness, subtract the back set, multiply by 2, and add the clearance required. Now, what Hager is doing here is they're skipping the inset portion. So they're calling clearance not only the dimension that we would call inset, but they're also calling out what's happening out here. Casing, chair rail, obstructions. So your hinge needs to not only contend with any inset, and it might be 0, it might be 1/8 or 3/32, or it might be 8 inch or anything in between, but it also has to compensate for this unknown thickness of stuff, obstructions, etc. So what we do is we call all of the stuff from the face of the jamb out the clearance. We call the inset. We call the door thickness the door thickness. And we call the hinge back set the hinge back set. So, the formula, not that you would remember it, but it's on that page. I happen to remember it. It's dt, this is dt, minus hb times 2 plus, they called it clearance. But that's just out here. Let's modify their definition. Plus clearance plus inset. You're going to add thickness of trim, casing, obstructions, plus the inset. Now, if you defined clearance as from the face of the door all the way out to something, awesome. In our situation on this door, it's 1 3/4 minus 1/4 times 2 plus C plus 3/4. So C is the clearance. I'm sorry, that's no good. Plus 3/4. I'm making up a clearance value of 3/4 plus 8. I said our door was 8-inch inset. All right, now. Okay, so let's run this formula. 1 3/4 minus 1/4 is 1.5 times 2 is 3. Plus 3/4 plus 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. Plus 3/4 is 11 3/4. Voila! You go to the next available. You go to the next available commercial size, and indeed that would make a 12-inch hinge. Now this is completely made up, although the values are completely realistic. But this would be an absolute example of why you would say, I have to have a 12-inch hinge. I have to have a 12-inch hinge. So the barrel can sit out here. You can be where it needs to be. Well, the barrel's not going to sit there. The barrel's going to sit a lot closer in. So we've got to be really mindful about, how we treat this example with a 12-inch wide hinge, because your barrel in this case is really going to be closer to here. So the 5x12 wouldn't work for this application. We would need a much bigger hinge, or we'd have to do a raised barrel, or there'd have to be an accommodation in the jamb, which is extremely uncommon. So that's how you determine all of this stuff. Now, what's making this really odd is, of course, 8-inch. It's never 8-inch. It's probably 2-inch. So let's make this 2-inch. 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 3/4 is 6. So if clearance was 2, you'd now need a 5x6 is what you would need. Let's say clearance was 3. 3 plus 3, 3/4, you'd need a 7-inch. I don't know if there's a 7-inch wide throw. You might have to go to 8-inch. I am looking for the... Yeah, they do list a 7-inch. So you go to the next commercially available hinge width is how you do this. Sorry, so here we are. Yeah, and there you go. That's the bottom line on this stuff. And if you do get out 10-inch and beyond, you got to really think about that margin. Okay, there is a link below this video here to the manufacturer's page. When you click on that again, you load this page. This will allow you to review not only all of the Hager products we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. That's the catalog I opened up to find the cut sheet of the BB1199, the definition of wide throw. Let's just take one more look here. Yeah, okay. So that we went through the paragraphs on definition. Then that second page was a handy table showing you some information. Now, what makes this cross section, in my opinion, a good distilled version is they're assuming that your inset is flush with the jamb. Again, if this was all moved in, you'd have to incorporate that, because clearance is basically face of the jamb to the inside of the face of the door when it's at 180 degrees. So clearance becomes everything you got to stuff in here, or get around, I should say. All right, so let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Sooner or later, there's going to be someone, and it'll be sooner rather than later, that someone's going to call and need this hinge, because it's perfectly exactly what they need, or so close it's perfect. Now, I usually don't ever say negative things about any manufacturer's products, but when it's glaring and obvious, I do. So first of all, what I do like is that the fit and finish is clean. The only marks on here really are my fingerprints and one small little tooling mark right here. Probably not a big deal. However, the Hager logo is not square. That needs to go into a fixture. This shouldn't be someone with a die in their hand and a 2-pound hammer. That should be done more automated and perfectly straight. What I like about the logo is that it's petite. I don't want corporate advertising on my hardware. Mark it so I know, awesome. I would also like to see on the back what this is. This is a BB1199. Put a date code on there. Something on there to identify this hinge. This is an extremely expensive hinge. There should be some paper trail on it, in my opinion. Now, what I first noticed is the hinge leaves are not exactly flush with each other. And you can see that. I don't know why that's the case. They're the same size, but one's bent. Now, the issue is if I were to just take these two hinges and, I can bring the leaves to each other. But I don't want to do that on a hinge that costs $300, whatever it is. A lot of money. I also don't like the variation in the hinge leaf itself. It seems like the way that these are milled, or I should say sanded and ground, I don't love. Looks like at the end they've got some trouble here. And if this hinge was oil rub bronze, it would probably have some additional flaws that I personally wouldn't like. I'm just saying it. And if anyone at Hager looks at it, the reason I bring it up is because customers going to call and say, what is this? Those leaves aren't even, 99 out of 100, 999 out of 1,000 clients won't mention it because they won't realize it. They don't stare at hinges all day like you and I do. But it needs to be correct. It needs to be accurate. So calling that to your attention. Having said that, Hager is a leader when it comes to participation in our industry, when it comes to teaching and playing a role of instructor. There are people that work for Hager that have worked there for years, if not decades, that are exceptionally active in our industry educational events. And to them, for that, I say thank you very much. Hager is a comprehensive source of all things builders hardware related, basically everything except the door and the frame. The hinge, the closer, the securing device, locks, exit devices, the door closers, the terminal auxiliary, the gasketing, continuous geared aluminum hinges, pin and barrel hinges, sliding door hardware, accessories, on and on and on. The advantage for the distributor is that you can order all of this stuff for stock on a single PO. You can get your closers and your locks and your hinges for stock. And Hager's been in business, as I may have mentioned earlier, for 165 years is my guess. They've literally been in business for that many years. There are, the Hager family owns and runs Hager. I don't know if they're in their 5th or 7th generation. It might be 5th. There is speaking of history, back at that manufacturer's page, there was a catalog from 1915. If you want to see what a Hager was making over 100 years ago, you might find that enjoyable. Any questions on the WTBB1199, 5x12, and 32D, or any other Hager product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.